in-house, so that does help a lot.
And the crew knows there's the sets that are the standing stages, so they can light much more quickly versus a brand new set or a location. It can take over an hour to light, where when we're on our stages, it's like half hour, which saves a lot of time. Yeah. Moving on.
I'm gonna tell a joke. I'm joking.
Help me. I ask other questions. No. To all of you. Grey's Anatomy has been on the air for 18 seasons, 400 episodes, and is still very successful in finding new audience every day. How do you understand the role of melodrama to engage the audience in both shows? Station.
Melodrama is a bad word in our writers' room.
Really? Tell me more about it.
No, it's obviously it is melodrama. They're soaps, but at their core, they're character dramas, and so
As a genre.
we try. No, I'm just joking. We try to stay away from what we think of as melodrama, but you know, sometimes that. I'm gonna stop.
Let's
I
talk about.
feel like you always, the thing is always like we tackle very important and relative subjects, but I feel like the goal is always to add some humor at the end and to not to take it always like too seriously or make it too melodramatic. Did I say right? Boom! I got you.
I see. Yes, but I mean, it's, because we're talking about characters and their personal issues, and we're talking about something universal like love and death, and so it's when I say melodrama is more about death. So
Yeah, right. Now you're trying to recall.
No, I get it. No, I mean, you're right, because that is what sets these shows and sort of all of Shonda Land's shows apart from the typical procedural. It's not just a hospital show. It's not just like a case of the week, is what we call it. It's the people watch the show and have been watching the Greys for 18 years because of those relationships and the love, the death, all of that. And that is what makes it special.
And the character growth of our doctors are now world-renowned, successful people, but they were not in the first episode of the show. So they change a lot, and we're bringing new characters to refresh that, so we can still have the funny and the comedic and the messy. Being messy is a very important ingredient of Grey's Anatomy, I think. And also on Station 18, that's one of the things we learned from that, I think.
I feel like also Grey's and Station both tackle very relevant subjects.
Yeah, very topical subjects.
So, but it's so interesting how they still stay relevant 18 years later. Like how the first few seasons of Grey's Anatomy tackles that. Oh, hello. Subjects, they're still relevant. Yeah, I'm busy. 20 more minutes. Yeah.
Great. Let's see. I really would talk about more of that, but we'll get back to that. Grey's Anatomy is one of the shows that are timeless and always finding new audiences. Why do you think it speaks so well to new viewers, and what is the secret to still engage viewers that have been with the show for the start and new ones? Of course, changing the cast may help, I think, but please.
I'm going to tell you all the secret to having a successful TV show. Just kidding, no one knows.
I'm going to check my notebook.
Like I said, I think it's the relationships, it's the character growth. What was so groundbreaking about Grey's Anatomy 17 years ago was that Shonda Rhimes created this female character that was carrying an entire show in a genre that was not solely represented by men, but generally there weren't a lot of like female doctors at the center of the show. And there honestly weren't a lot of about females at the center of a show that wasn't a sitcom, wasn't kind of about I'm a woman, it's so scary. But like she was allowed to be flawed and complicated and make mistakes and be good at her job but not always perfect, and that I think was really revolutionary for people at that time, and it's what made it such a giant unexpected hit because no one really saw that coming. Like no one saw the need for something like that in for the viewers, and it's just kind of exploded from there, and it has continued to fill those gaps and represent people who don't feel represented on TV, and there's always something new to show and a new audience to grab, and of course with the advent of streaming, but we've just been able to continue to grow the audience.
And renew the audience too. I think a lot of younger viewers discovered Grey's Anatomy way after it had been on the air for like 10 or 12 years already. Now we have a young audience still, even 18 years later. And on top of that, that's what Stefania said. Like at some point, the show decided that it isn't soap opera anymore. It's a show that talks about domestic abuse. It talks about violence. It talks about racism. And those things are things that are happening. We discussed that on our shows without losing sight of the comedy and the entertainment aspect of it. And to me, that's something that makes me very excited to be working on it.
Oh, Stefania?
Okay. No, I feel like I second everything they said, and I mean, speaking about Grey's and station tackling subjects are very relevant. Last year we did a whole season about the pandemic that was happening in real time as we were shooting. We were going through the whole mask thing and shield thing, and so yeah.
And no other shows did that.
No,
They all did like one episode, and then the pandemic
Yeah.
was over, and that was a lot of what like critics were saying was, how to make a show relevant again in season 17 is to say, this thing is happening, we can't ignore it, and you might not want to watch it every night in the middle of it, but it's too important to the communities that we're representing on the show to ignore it.
And the George Floyd protests happened around that time too, and you guys especially, like didn't ignore it. And it was, to me as a viewer of Station 18, that was very powerful.
The sad thing is that some of those issues that you spoke about 17 years ago are still not solved today.
There's
but
still
it's
issues.
also important to keep hearing about those issues. So hopefully we can go towards solving. Yeah, I feel like I don't think the show has the responsibility of talking about very relevant subjects, but they really took it upon itself to talk about very relevant subjects, which I feel like is so important for a show that's been going on for so long. And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, yes. And I don't know if you know about it, but there was a research made in Brazil that showed us that Grey's Anatomy was one of the series that changed behavior of the watchers, the viewers, because it's entertainment, but it's discussing serious things. Yeah, so very cool.
That's cool.
And how do you choose? How do you select these conflicts you wanna put on the next season? Because I feel like you're always ahead of what's coming to be discussed. So your Grace, especially Grace, is always on time with the things that are over there, you know. So how do you choose these conflicts to be?
I mean, it's never a discussion of like, what issue are we going to tackle next, or what thing are we going to try to solve now. We try to approach it from what things do we care about, and what things do we think our characters would care about. And what's interesting about writing the two shows is that the characters live in very different worlds, even though it's the same world. on Grey's, you have, frankly, a lot of wealthy surgeons, and they're diverse and they're plugged into the community, but they have different issues than firefighters would, who are largely working class, and they are literally out in the community seeing people on their worst days. And so we try to only do stories that are topical if it makes sense to the world, and to the world that the characters live in, and the people that they would interact with. And so we try not to like choose themes or topics that we're going to discuss, but rather like, where does it come from out of us writers, and by extension the characters.
Cool. I know it's a very technical question, but what advice would you all guys give to our professionals that are here to learn something from a market that is so developed, so well structured, so we can someday get there? When I mean get there, to do something like you do there, not get there.
As a person who's from Brazil and who grew up here, and most of my career is here, if you're starting out, my first advice is learn the profession, because some people think that writing and acting is it's easy. You just need a computer to type on, and you just need to say words from the camera. And acting and writing is just like being a doctor or an engineer. You have to learn the profession first. That's the first thing you have to do. And a lot of people get there without knowing that for some reason. That's the first thing. And from there, develop a network. Like, find your people, find who are the people that you want to be around, who you want to work with. Because if you have a strong support of people who are starting out together, some of you are going to make it before the others, and you can help each other out. That is very important. It's true that it's a lot about who you know, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's as in, if a showrunner has 20 great candidates to hire for a position, but they already know 3 of them, they already like 3 of them, they will hire the people they already know and like. So develop that network, know the people that you want to work with, work super hard. That sounds very cliche, but it is kind of like that. And acknowledge that there's an amount of luck versus persistence. The more you have of one, the less you need of the other. And if you don't stop, if you don't give up, eventually you'll get there. I see a lot of people who work just as hard as me, or just as smart as me, keep doing what I'm doing, but they stopped before you got there. So that's what it is from my perspective.
Cool. Yes, that. I co-sign.
Okay. Yeah. I do feel like, okay, so this is some stuff that I've learned throughout the years, and I'm gonna say randomly. You do the best work when you care less, meaning when you're less nervous and anxious, and also you do the best work when you do work about what you know, naturally. And I feel like every road to success is so different. There's people that land in LA and start working right away, and you're like, what? I've been like waitressing for 5 years and nothing. And there's people that take a little longer. So I feel like don't let other people's path influence your own. Also staying busy, and I feel like with these phones we can make short films. If you know somebody that is a beautiful writer, I feel like now we can put everything online and reach people in different ways. It doesn't have to be through a network, through a production company. So staying busy, I think, and keep making art is also very important. Create your own network of people. They're like-minded. They like your they have the same taste. I think is very important. And what else?
I think also what you said about writing what you know and what's important to you is huge, because with the field becoming so much more competitive, like everywhere, all over, not just in California and Hollywood, There's a impetus for people to chase trends or try to like make a thing that they think they're going to sell, and we all went through that where we wrote pilots that were like, not us. Anybody could have written a cool Breaking Bad type thing, but it doesn't mean anything if it's not authentic to you. And when I started having success and people started noticing my writing was when I just stopped trying to chase a trend and just write something that was important and super personal. And I think the same goes for making your films or whatever, that if you're just trying to copy something that's successful, it's not going to ring true.
Yeah, we have a very good friend who was Kylie and I's roommates who did exactly that, the opposite of that. Wrote a show about drag balls in the 80s that we all knew no one's ever going to bite that, but it's a great writing sample. And that show is now called Pose. It got nominated for so many Emmys, I lost count.
Cool. And what can we expect for the new season? What can you tell us?
Some doctors are going to have some patience and they'll be traumatized.
Okay. So nothing.
Well, the rest of season 18 still has to air here, yeah? We're in the middle of season 18. It's really good.
No.
There's a lot of big changes happening at Greystone this season. That's what I'll say.
There are 2 characters returning for the finale.
Ooh.
Ooh.
And for the station fans, it's gonna get intense. There's some serious dramatic stories coming up.
And Derek's still dead. Yeah. Those are the fans. I can hear them laughing. It's still dead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're on our final considerations. There's something I haven't asked you that you would like to talk to our fans and producers, and I don't think so, no, sorry. That would be great. Because, okay, this is an event about to think about our market and how we can develop, how we can improve the way we do things, to do things with more quality, with more efficiency in production. So, any tip, any guidance in that sense that you could give to the audience, I think it would be great.
I specifically for TV, I would like to reiterate how important the writers are for the quality of the final product. Having worked in Brazil and having worked in the United States, the biggest difference for me is how important I as a writer feel from conception of a script to post-production, to seeing something there. When you get to the level of Kylie, who is an executive producer on both shows, she also approves spots that get aired, and she approves music, things like that. The last word on a lot of these things comes from the showrunner, who is the main writer of the show, or the number 2s, who are writers on the show. And the reason for that is not because writers are more or less important than anybody else, it's just because we are the people working on that day to day, working on that story day to day. Our directors come and go, and we stay.